Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have an interesting one. It's an oldie. It's a Mitchell 402 saltwater reel. This one was sent in, and it comes from Daniel in Connecticut. And we have a problem with this one. We have no oscillation. The spool is not going up and down. So what we'll do is we'll take this reel apart. I'll show you how it's made, how to service it. Hopefully if parts are needed, we have the parts. And we'll try to get this one working the way it should be working. So before I get started removing the exterior pieces and parts, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel if you like the art of reel repair. It seems like sometimes we get into these patterns here. Well, I'm working on vintage reels, and then next thing you know, we're working on all the current stuff. So if you subscribe, just use the notification button and you'll be able to see which ones we're working on, and well, you can make a determination as to whether that's something that you would like to see or not. So Daniel sent this one in because, well, the oscillation system isn't working. Normally an oscillation system only has three pieces to it. It has a drive gear coming off the back of the main gear, it has an oscillation gear, and it has a oscillation block. That's not the case with this reel. This reel has a very sophisticated oscillation system using a planetary gear drive, and I'm just curious to find out what's failed in this reel so that we can figure out how to go get it fixed. With those four side plate screws removed, we can remove the side plate here. We can note that we have an awful lot of what I would probably guess is hot sauce, and well, let's try and figure out why this is doing what it's doing. So we have the planetary gear here, and I believe that the answer to this one is that the spokes on the planetary gear have broken off. There should be two studs on this. Not sure which sides. Yeah, they would have mounted here, the two studs. They would go into the block here, one on each side. And well, this one got sheared off. Maybe whoever did the work on this the last time and was so generous with the hot sauce, well, they just didn't do anything to, maybe they didn't even become aware that those studs belonged inside. Fortunately, I think I have a planetary gear. Well, at some point in time we'll take a look and try and figure that one out, see if I have that. And then, well, I'll put it back together again and get it going. All right, we want to remove the main gear. We're going to do a complete cleanup and service on this. Whoever smeared the grease on there didn't even bother to take the old grease out from the last time, and that clearly is not the new stuff. So I always get concerned when I see stuff like this. I don't fault anybody for it, but if you don't know what you're doing with the reel, I would suggest just leave it alone. You're only going to compound problems. And somewhere along the line, well, when this came off and when it went back on again, well, it did nothing but confound the problem. This is our little wire for the anti-reverse. Just make sure you don't lose it in this mess. And I'm just using a little common flat blade screwdriver to get this piece out, clean it up, and get it to the point where it can go fishing again. This looks like it's some kind of automobile grease. The red stuff is almost certain the quantum hot sauce. No, that's okay, no problems with that. Just you get to notice after a while what's what. It's either that or it's strawberry candy, one of the two. Okay, let's just do as best we can to clean this piece off in the case. So the 402 and the Mitchell 302 share a lot of common parts, but the 402 is a high-speed version of the 302. The 302 was the original Mitchell saltwater reel, and then they, like they did with many of their models, they went high speed. So you had a 300 and you had the Mitchell 400, which was the high-speed version. And then, of course, you had the 302 here. Kind of the same thing. All right, that's done. Let's clean out the back end of this. Again, you can just see this wheel couldn't have been performing very well because it was mired down and all of that stuff. I'm just trying to wonder right now where those two pegs may be, because I suspect they went in with them, but they didn't come out with them. So, all right, this is the main gear. It's a beautiful main gear. The high speed in the reel comes from a bigger main gear and a smaller pinion gear. That's what changes the gear ratio in this. And the high speed is great if you're throwing a lot of plugs and lures that require a rapid retrieve. This also would be used in the saltwater environment, just like the 302. The 302 probably would have a little bit more torque, and this would have a little bit more speed. Okay, we've cleaned up those pieces and parts. I think what we can do is we can probably just go ahead and put this back, get this out of the way. So, clean off that anti-reverse spring. For those of you that may have taken that anti-reverse off, I'll show you how to put that back on right now. This is your anti-reverse dog. There's a little pinhole in this one. I believe this is where this is going to sit in the pinhole, like that on the back end. It goes over the stud, presses against the case. I brought it out of that pinhole there. And then it just wraps in like that. This is in the off position. When you turn your lever, it's going to move it to the on position to allow it to intersect, and then it will bounce back and forth here as it hits the gears. And put it in the off position. Just a drop of oil onto that post. There's a lot of grease on there already. Let's go ahead and grab that main gear. We're going to grease the back of the main gear and the teeth. You want to inspect the teeth on the main gear. You want to make sure that they're all in good condition, that you don't see any bends or chips or cracks or extraordinary wear. If you do, you're going to need to replace the piece. There's no way to go fix that. And we're going to get a little bit of grease onto the face here as well. I'm going to set that off to the side. You can put the oscillation gear in at this point. We're just going to leave that to the side. I prefer to mount that main gear right into the block. Okay, let's take this side plate off. We can continue with the cleaning. We have a broken screw on the one side here. We have a loose screw on this piece. We have a vibration shim here. I got a couple of loose screws here. I guess maybe they've taken it off and they couldn't figure it out and just kind of left it as it is. So let's get rid of that piece. And what I like to do with these is I like to hold these off to the side so that I know which screws go in which pieces. Well, you can see we've got what I like to call clean up in aisle 7. There's a lot of dirt and debris, so let's show you how to get to the point where we can clean this now. I'm trying to remove the greases that are accumulated on the top and bottom. There should be C-clips holding this on, and we're going to want to get to that. Before I do that, I want to take that screw out of the bottom of this as well. There's a carrier here for the bottom end of the axle shaft, and that's what we're going to remove at the moment, the axle shaft. All of my parts that I remove go into a parts tray. That's good accounting and keeping it all as one. Okay, I'm just looking now for that little C-clip, and most of the time if you use a thin-bladed screwdriver you can push this through. There's not a lot of tension on it, but you want to be very careful as you go to push it through that you don't lose it. Because if you lose it, well, it's hard to find them. Generally what will happen is you can load them down, and you're probably not seeing this because the face of the camera is probably in the way. here's your clip. I did it so that I could hold that clip to the bottom so that if it did bounce, it would bounce on my board. That's going right into the parts tray because I don't want to lose that clip. Once you do that, you can actually push the device up a little bit to free the access to the one on the bottom. We're going to do that again. Find the clip, kind of rotate it so that it's going to come out of the bottom. And again, it's hard for you to see this. I do know that, and I do apologize. I have one point on each side there. I'm going to just simply hold the one point, push on the other. And then look on my bench to find the second piece. If you're nervous about doing something like that, I get nervous all the time with pieces like this, but if you're nervous doing something like that, put this inside of a plastic bag, like a gallon bag, and do it there, because then it's going to fall inside the bag, and will be less subject to loss. I'm going to hold the block and turn the axle shaft now, and pull the axle shaft out. One of the things to remember is this is a left-hand cranking reel. This crosswind block has a slot on one side. That's where that stud for the oscillation gear goes. What you want to do is make sure when you go to reinstall that the oscillation gear stud, groove, whatever we want to call this, is facing the left-hand side. It's easy enough to say. It's a lot easier just to mess up. All right, that's going into my parts tray. And now, well, we got two more things to do. We want to remove the top. And again, they're very generous with their usage of this stuff. So number one reason why a fishing reel fails is lack of oils and greases. Number two reason is too much oil and grease, especially when it gets to be to the point where it just dries up. Okay. Let's see if I can get this top off. I'm going to remove the rotor. Under the rotor there is a stud that's going to center for this. You just need to be very careful as you take that off, that this little stud here, right here, it's hard to see, it's a little T-shaped stud. Don't lose it. If you lose this, your rotor will spin freely and out of control. You won't be able to stop that. All right, that's off. Clean the bottom of this. I'm going to use a penetrating oil to reduce down the issue with this. Notice that there is a plastic cap under here. Get it off if I can. This one seems to be particularly stubborn. Here we go. This is your plastic cap. If you've left that on the reel or you haven't been able to find it, just make sure when you go to reinstall that you know where it is, and it's right here in this bowl. All right. Well, the fix to this reel is not an issue as long as we have that planetary gear. What's not the issue is the cleanup. And so sometimes the time is all in the repair, sometimes the time is in, well, something like this, cleaning up somebody else's mess. All right, this is your bail trip assembly. When you pull in, it's going to drop it down. When this comes around and hits, it's going to flip it back. It will withdraw that little stud. And the best thing to do for this one is just spray a little bit of penetrating oil onto the seam for your bail wire assembly. You do not need to take that off if you're just servicing the reel. The big parts go off to the side, and we've got one more thing to do here. This is the side plate vibration screw. We'll put that away. And we got one more piece, and that would be to remove this pinion gear and bearing. We'll see how successful we are with that. You're going to need a micro screwdriver for that. There's a screw that holds right here. Sometimes it gets so worn that you can't get access to it. And if that's the case, it's just going to sit in here. Because you can't risk breaking the case on something like this. So you have one side goes here. There should be a corresponding one over here. I think we're going to get lucky. I think we're going to be able to do that. I'm backing these out, not taking them out all the way. I need to make sure that we're clear of the ridge. We are. And with any luck, we'll get this out. But with the way that this thing has been lately, I kind of have my doubts. All right, I can't gain access that way. I'm going to put the rotor on it, use that as... Brought that down, that's interesting. Okay, well, we're going to clean it up this way then. So all this stuff that got smeared all over the place has got no use whatsoever. There's no moving parts there. They're only lubricating the case. And, well, we can have a conversation about whether the case needs to be lubricated or not. Okay, just gonna put the pinion gear in there for a moment. And I think what we'll do is we'll turn this video off. You don't need to see me cleaning this case. We'll come back when that's done. Okay, well, we've done about as best as we can. We're not completely clean, but we're clean enough. And we're going to just go ahead and start the reinstallation then. I'm going to just tighten these down, the carriers, to hold that in place. I tried to get that out. It wasn't budging. And, well, there comes a point where you need to make a decision as to whether you want to go full out. Now, if that was a very noisy bearing, it wasn't performing very well, then I would probably come underneath here and get a punch and push it out that way. But this one's working, and given what we've got in this reel, we're going to just kind of leave it as it is. I'm going to grease the pinion gear here and the shaft of that pinion gear, and we'll start the up top reassembly. So we've greased that. We're going to slide this back in through that bearing. I did notice that we kicked out the shield for the top bearing. So if you have that part laying on your table and you're trying to figure out where it goes, that's where it goes. Seems it's easier to knock out than put back on. Just a little plastic piece of film, but it's a shield for your bearing. Okay, I'm going to put that little cap piece back in there. Next up, what we want to do is get that little lock for your rotor. Again, this is the piece that we're looking for. It's just a little T with a rounded side, and that rounded side is going to fit into the hole in the pinion gear. And be careful, if it drops, chances are you're not going to locate it again. When you put that in, it needs to go straight in line with the pinion gear. Hold the bottom of the pinion gear now. I'm going to put the cap ring on next. And I probably wanted to put that on before I put the other cap piece in, so let's take that off for a moment. That cap ring sits, there's two little slices in that. The slices go to each screw, and it sits flat. So it needs to be flush to the bottom of that mounting. Not sure you can see that. Now we can grab that little pin, keyway. These parts are very hard to find too. So if you've lost one, you may lose the reel. Check eBay. There's some folks out there that will take a broken reel and part it out. There's that slot, you can see it here. That's the slot. and that keyway is going to slide between that slot. So line it up, bring it in, and you'll know you're in when you have the rest of the pinion gear coming up top. Hand thread the top nut, tighten that down, give it all a spin, and we're ready for the rest of the reassembly on this reel. This is the part that we're looking for as a replacement, and you can see the two studs on it. Those need to seat into that those two holes in the main cavity. All right, next up what we want to do is we want to put the carrier assembly and the line guide back in. People wonder why I wear the glove. I wish I could wear it on my working hand. All right, we want to take our anchor point below. That's going to ride between the rails, so get some grease onto that. Bring that over under the rail. Just like that. Now we want the carrier or the crosswind block, and we want the axle and spool assembly. Two things. There's a groove in the axle shaft right here that's going to correspond with that crosswind block, and when you go to install it, it needs to line up this way. Very easy to put it on like that, get the orientation right on the one side, but then have the bump on the other. That won't work. Light coating of grease. Bring that through the pinion gear. Make sure that the slot is facing to the left. That's where the drive is on this one. Next, put the crosswind block on. Then aim that for your carrier below. Align your carrier. And then get the long screw that goes into the carrier. And that screw, if I remember, came on this side. If you are doing a reel like this, take pictures. It's the best way for you to see what you took off, when you took it off, the orientation of it, and well, if you have any questions about it, it's the best way for you to get back on track. I've just moved the crosswind bar up now because I want to put the first of those little C-clips back in. These do not take a lot of effort to put in. Generally, if you just get a pair of pliers like this, line it in the slot, and push in, you can get it started, and then you can finish it with finger pressure. So that's in the right way now. Come to the top, we'll do the second one. Get it started. And then again, finger pressure generally will get this in. I think we're in there. And now you got a crosswind block that does not move up and down. You can put a little bit more grease onto the shaft. And now for the all-important, how did it get to the way it got to? I'm going to take that replacement planetary gear. Place that into our axle, onto our main gear rather. Getting ahead of myself with the axle. You need to mesh the planetary gear with the oscillation gear. And then you got two things going here now on that left-hand side of the reel. And this is the way I prefer to do it. I prefer to line the two pieces up like that. Find your slot in your crosswind block, and then the slot or the spots in the case. Okay, you'll know you have it when it's flat. You noticed I was looking from behind. This has got the right symmetry to it. You can see that we're got a nice flat case there. And we'll next take the side plate cover and put that back on now. And I'm going to use a kitchen scrubby which has some rod and reel cleaner on it just to clean this side of the case here before I start putting a screw or two in there to hold it. I've segregated this side's screws, but if you haven't done that and you're wondering how to do that, you're going to notice that one of the screws has got a taper flat head, and the other one has got a round head on it. It's the tapered flat head that goes on this side. And you'll notice that because there's a kind of a V-shaped groove where these are going to go. That's one. And I don't want to go crazy here. What we'll do is we'll put two of these in, we'll turn it around, and we'll see if I've got that planetary gear seated properly in the frame. Because there's no sense putting four of them in to find out that you didn't get it. And it happens, it probably happened with the fella or gal who put that in. Alright, let's turn. We want to make sure that the planetary gear is stationary and that the rest of this turns. So we're going to just turn the rotor. Okay, the machine is working and the planetary gear is stationary. That's the way this should be. With that in mind, now we can go ahead and put the other side on. Whoop, we can put the two screws in. That was a whoops. Put the two screws in on this side. Tighten those down. It's a good time to mention, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, maybe you want some additional information on when it was made, how it's used, and the like, just leave that in the comment section. If you're working on a reel maybe and you're stuck, it doesn't have to be this reel, it could be any reel. If you want to leave a message in that comment section, just let me know the model and the make and what the issue is that you're having a problem with. And we'll see what we can do to help you out. Okay, this one's going to go in. Slide that in and over. Oops, got it backwards. In and over like that before you put the side case in. Got a little bit more dirt on this one side here. Up, found one of them. So that's one of the studs that had broken off with the previous installation. I don't know if the other ones came out in that glob of grease that we started with or what may have happened to it. You certainly don't want that floating around in there. Okay, the side plate is clean. We'll do the same thing here with the rod and reel cleaner. While we got the side plate case off, it's easy enough to clean it up, so let's go do that. And I'm using a pen rod and reel cleaner and a kitchen scrubby, just a corner of a kitchen scrubby. We put that vibration shield in first. Now go slip the side plate case under it. We're going to remember on this one that we don't have the fourth screw, that the fourth screw was broken off. So let's go ahead and put that down. And you can run it without that side plate screw. This reel has never been known for keeping out water intrusion. The old timers used a grease packet just like what was kind of being shown here, but that grease is way too new on the top end. Underneath the main gear, that's probably the grease that at one point or another was grease packed. No trouble getting this one started. Okay, one more of these. It's going to go through that vibration clip. I'm going to use a screw starter for this. It's kind of tight quarters there, and I have big hands, so let's see what we can do with that. Okay, we'll tighten that one down. All right, all we have to do is put the handle on, see how we did. Now sometimes we would service the main drags, but the main drags are all metal. So if the drags are working, there's nothing you can really do about that. Tighten that up. All right, we're looking for oscillation. Well, there you go. We've got our oscillation going. That's how you service the reel. Make sure that we're tripping on the bail. That's it. That's your Mitchell 402. That's how to take it apart, service it, keep it going for a long time to come. Fault? Well, it's a poorly mounted or mismounted oscillation gear, and well, that causes all kinds of problems, doesn't it? I hope you've enjoyed that. To our first responders and the essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do to keep us safe. Your efforts truly are appreciated. To everybody, please stay safe, stay well, have a great day on the water, or fishing, or wherever you may be, or even thinking about fishing. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody well.